Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a representative from Hickory Veterinary Hospital?
Several of us, but my name is Will Kay. I'm the owner and veterinarian.
My name is Sean Livesey. I'm the attorney. You probably won't need to hear from me much tonight.
And Greg Noel with Nave Noel, we're the engineers and planners.
So, do I just kick it off?
Yeah, if you would make your presentation.
Sure. So, just wanted to kind of give you guys the broad strokes about what we're trying to do. Is anyone familiar with Hickory or no other miles away? It could be good or bad. But my mother sold the practice to us about 3 years ago, right around COVID. That's perpetuating a third-generation family practice. It has historically been a hybrid practice, which it still is today, but we're actively working on expanding or reintroducing emergency services, which have been pretty lackluster around the nation since COVID, but especially in the Philadelphia area. If you have pets, you would potentially know that. So we've been doing quite a good job recruiting veterinarians and trying to grow the facility. The team is good. The building is old. Some of the building is old. So the practice was founded by my grandfather in the 50s with the same law firm, which I guess is a third generation, just whatever, an aside kind of neat.
If anybody knows Gilbert High, his father, I believe, was the attorney that originally got zoning for this facility.
Go High.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
It's a
Name of the best.
Yes.
Okay.
So William Brown is my grandfather, so the last name's different. But anyway, the facility that he founded, it was a small general practice, and it's on the turnpike side of the building. So we still use it today. We do dentals in there. There's some like office space that were reconverted from some old kennels, some like medical quarters and things like that. But it's not really utilized very well. And so what we'd like to do is kind of tear that down and rebuild it with something better, more modern, and just make the workflow better. Thus allowing patient care to improve and client waiting times, volume, all that stuff. In the plans, it's sort of a marginal increase. So I think it's like 13% based on the square footage of where that building is, and it's all on the turnpike side. So the hope is that this really won't even be noticeable to anybody. It's just going to be replacing or upgrading something that is overdue for modernization. So the plan is to expand exam rooms. So currently there are 6. We'd like to go to, I think it's 14 in there. We'd like to kind of remove some of the surgical suites around and reutilize the front for more of the emergency side of things. And then add some areas for various specialties and patient wards, which actually will push, it's not a sound issue, but it'll push everybody towards the turnpike, kind of the animals and things like that. Comfort room is a part of the thing, so if you come in, you have to put a pet down, have access to one of the rooms so that you can kind of leave immediately without having to walk through the lobby with your clients. Isolation area, so the same thing, you can have a dog that's potentially infectious come through its own door, not in the lobby, just kind of normal medical improvements that are pretty standard in other more modern facilities. The upstairs will be slightly bigger to be used for office space, just so that we can have everybody more central to help with workflow. So like right now, it's kind of a scattered facility just because it was my great-grandmother's house and 5 generations of people have lived there, et cetera, et cetera. But the goal is to just keep the hospital as few steps as you can in between everybody so we're all just firing more efficiently. That's more or less the rundown. I think there's some renderings and stuff, and we want to make the aesthetic nice, we want to improve the property, all that stuff. So.
Okay.
Thanks, Will.
One passage around. Sure. I'm just going to hand you around it's actually got the zoning application that we submitted as the very first thing. You can ignore that if you like. The 2 plans at the back are what I wanted to give you. And then I also have a rendering to hand for each of you.
So it was a hybrid practice? What does that mean?
It means just general practice and specialty and emergency. So I'm a neurologist, I'm a veterinary neurologist. So I do seizures.
Do you have Reader's versions?
If what he just handed out,
Yeah, it has-
Veterinary,
it has
he's a
the plans, but-
General practitioner and he knows that more, now more business. But basically we see kind of all things, but what we're also trying to do is really grow the
Rendering.
specialty, so to provide those services for more advanced cases. So that's where I come in. I have another couple who's a local couple, that's a surgeon and a criticalist, who share the same ideas that we have. And, you know, like veterinary world, a lot of corporatization has been going on, and so we're one of the holdouts. So we're proud of that.
Thanks for the explanation.
Okay, did you want to say anything about the background?
Nothing to add really, no.
Okay. So thanks, everybody. I have over here, I want to shift over, you guys okay with that? Just real quick, the bigger picture, the property actually is this long strip, people may not be aware, it kind of loops around. I actually was here before with a couple different things. There was some discussion about development in the back, and we were considering that, and we have since passed on that. And the building is all up front. The expansion, it's not expansion, to rephrase that, it's a reconstruction. So it's where it says on here multi-level vet clinic you see on the plans before you. That's the build portion of the existing clinic we're looking to tear down and to rebuild in here. The background for why we're here is there's some of that, but there's historically a zoning issue. This is a residential zoning district. For those of you who've been on the Planning Commission for a while, we're just, every number 10, 15 years or so, it seems like we come in to deal with this as they continue and invest in it. You may have heard me talking to Brittany. I grew up here. I was down Mill Creek Road with my family for 55 or 60 years. This clinic was really important to all of us, and is to this day. It is not part of a conglomerate. It's not part of a bigger thing. You know, I think we take pride in, at least I have that opinion, it's an asset to the community. And so the fact that Dr. K is willing to continue to invest in upgrading improvement, I think he was maybe aware he has an MRI unit here. I don't know whether they had to come to the Planning Commission. But the fact that they were willing to bring their own MRI unit to the facility just speaks to that. So what we have to do is, historically, we have to come before the Planning Commission, let them know of our changes, because it's a residential zone, and then go to before the zoning hearing board. And really, that's what this is tonight. Practically speaking, percentage-wise, your building coverage is increasing by 0.5%. We're well under the requirements. Impervious coverage is, again, 0.5%. We're really not doing much of anything, keeping this within it. We're respectful to the height requirements, so we're not trying to get a variance for height. The great portion of this is the other part of the existing clinic, in essence, blocks this from, there is residential up here. It's all wooded, it's this big wooded area. The turnpike is on this side. I think everyone recognizes that. This project's right up against the turnpike. So you see an image, that's a rough idea of what we're looking at. It blends in with everything else there. And in many ways, we're just trying to keep this simple. He's making a big investment to change this along the way. We're respecting all the things that we think the township would be concerned about as far as building height and location and lighting and everything else. So I don't see there's a lot. So there are two variances needed. One is just a straightforward expansion of a non-conforming use, which is the thing that's been renewed. I think Sean's got like 6 or 7 items in his folder.
Yes, I do. I have the opinions from the zoning board where they approved this precise request.
And the second one is increasing it more than 25%. They're the exact same thing. They're just two different sections of the ordinance addressing the same thing. I'm happy to address questions, but it is in many ways pretty straightforward. We have talked to, I haven't had a chance to talk to Lon, but we did talk to Tim ahead of time and go over what we were doing here, understanding what's the development process we would have to go through and so forth. So we did make sure to run it by Lonnie and Tim's office.
Thank you very much. Lonnie?
Yeah, could you explain to the board what your previous improvements were the last go-around? There was some stormwater conveyance.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got a grading permit. I think we came before the Planning Commission. I think we did just a grading.
Yes.
This parking lot here is what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yes. So one of the things that through the years has been a need to address parking and to provide additional parking where we can. And so there's a primary area where everybody sees, and then there's sort of a gravel lot down the bottom here. And we wanted to formalize that so that it could be properly cared for. So we went through a grading permit process with the township. There is a process of stormwater conveyance and parking within this area here.
So stormwater conveyance and parking, there were no buildings put up at that time.
There were no, thank you for, they had enough, it just simply addressed limited parking that was there. Now, I suspect, Dr. K, this is probably more employee parking than it is.
Yeah, I mean, so my mother's tried to do lots of different things, which I don't necessarily agree with. But one of the things that I want to do is, one, maintain a good relationship with the neighbors. So far, so good. But two, like consolidate where we're working out of, because it makes more sense. So we have a pretty good blueprint of a facility already that is, I mean, for what we need, it's fine. It needs to flow better, it needs to be restructured better, but it doesn't need to go crazy. And so if we can focus our attention back to the main hospital, which is where the primary work is done, we can do that. And that will have zero impact on the neighbors because there's zero visibility from that side of things, and especially considering the buffering property next door. I mean, it's just woods in a derelict building, which it has been for a long time. But even so, I wouldn't want to piss them off either. You know, I want to do whatever needs to be done to try to minimize the residential impact.
Is the current proposal, will that generate the need for more parking?
So thanks for the question. I should have clarified that, Buddy. What we're doing is the existing driveway varies between 25 and 26 feet wide, and as such, that meets the requirements to allow us to put parallel parking. So we're showing this striped in here. We're not having to add any more impervious coverage. We're just doing that, correct. So what you're seeing there, we're formalizing.
Right, so the point for me is there were plans about parking and doing shoot-offs and stuff, but that would direct lights to the wrong way.
Right.
So
Right.
by keeping it that way, I think it minimizes impact. There's fences up, there's trees and whatever else that we've done, but there's no actual houses there that it would.
And on this stretch here, as Dr. K is saying, this is, somebody may be familiar, there's a very old house there that I don't think is occupied, but that's all wooded in there, and there's really nothing there. And what we're doing is just going right up against that, and as Dr. K was alluding to, it would be parallel parking, so we don't get to pull in and pull out lights. Dr. K did invest a lot over in here. He's got a fence and a landscaping down in this area that he addressed that area. But that's how we would do that to meet the requirements.
And the new proposal, when it comes to land development, will have some type of stormwater management associated with it, or, I mean, the application said it did, so.
We're expecting that we would, yes,
Okay.
of some form. We hadn't got to that point.
Gotcha.
We're kind of doing in sequence, but yes, we would.
I'm a novice, but I wanted to at least see if this was something that would be maybe okay
Right.
conceptually before we invest a lot of dollars in a plan that's useless.
That's it for me, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brittany? Thank you, ma'am. Tony?
No, I just was, I was concerned about the width of that driveway and the parking along that. Obviously, there's a provision for emergency vehicles or something like that.
So what we were trying to do is by striping it, people get boundary lines that I think they're much more likely to stay in, whereas right now it's a little bit of haphazard and they kind of pull over where they're at. And once somebody starts in the wrong spot, then it perpetuates itself. So this will formalize that along the way.
I'm good.
Thank you, sir. Michael?
Just to clarify, so are you going to be doing anything new there, or just an expansion of what you're already?
So if I can, look there, I can maybe show you here.
You mean services?
Yeah,
Service.
services, I hope so. So so if you want to know what I've been doing business-wise, the practice when we took over was not in a great way. So it was 4 doctors that were full-time clinicians when we took over. My wife was working very, very hard. I was still working full-time as a neurologist in New Jersey during the pandemic, going back and forth 2.5 hours for 2 years while I put the MRI in, because I need that machine to really do what I do. So in that time period, in the first year, we kind of just tried to not ruin the business and shut it down. That was good. Step 2 was kind of get a new team in there and start rebuilding the culture, which again was very different, personality-wise, very different in the families. So we had to kind of change that around. So we started with 8 full-time doctors last year. We're up to 16 now starting this year, with a couple of younger people we're trying to train up that are going to be fresh out of school to kind of continue that. So our plan is to go back to 24 hours very soon to be able to provide that emergency care. So phase 1 was, no, don't close. Phase 2 was get people that all we agree with. Phase 3 was grow emergency, and now I'm hoping to attract more specialties, which is what the practice had been historically and really should be. And so that's what we've been doing against all these other corporate people. It's kind of saying, hey, like, you don't like that, here's another option. There's not that many around. So that's, we have oncology, we have me, we have full-time criticalist, we have full-time surgery, rotating ophthalmology, rotating cardiology. I'd love to get a full specialty hospital. There's a few outliers out there. So we'll see. Hopefully next year I can come in and say we did.
Thanks.
That's it.
So you're saying going back to 24 hours, you were 24 hours in the past?
Yeah, it's been 24 hours for not the 90s until 2000 and like right before we took over, 2020. And that's
Okay.
because my mom lost all the staff.
Sure. So it just dropped off during that
Yeah,
point?
so we had been consistently open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. through that time with only 4 doctors. So
Right.
like the guy in my life was pretty grumpy during that year. But we have been focusing on doing that, and all these other hospitals are turning their keys on, lights off. They're on and off. They don't know if they're open on the weekends. The referring vets don't know where they send the cases, and it's been a fiasco. So we've just tried to be consistent. So we've been up until midnight for about a year, and now 2 a.m. So we're trying to do it steadily and not like burn out the staff members, which is a big problem. So that has been no rush anything. When we do it, we want to do it right.
Okay.
But, so just to clarify though, the hours of operation in general have been consistent. We're not offering something new per se.
Correct.
It's, pandemic has just laid havoc with all businesses, and they were the same thing, but now he's getting it back to where it's been. So we don't, but there's not a question of how we changed that component of the service.
And you mentioned you had outreach to the neighbors. Have you informed the neighbors of this plan, and what is their response?
I have not informed them. As far as outreach, I mean to just basically not bother them. So I have, like, there was one lady who came over and said, hey, I can see some lights down in the parking lot. I don't want to make waves. I said, no problem. I called the landscaper that day. We put up those things. Okay. So I was, unaware of the impact. Truthfully, like, they're looking at the highway, and so it's not that beautiful of a thing anyway. But nonetheless, it's her house, her backyard. So we'll take that into consideration with anything we're doing.
Okay. Do you have any comments?
I'm good.
Does anyone from the audience have any comments? Okay. Is anyone in the audience opposed to the application? Is anyone in the audience in favor of the application? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to the zoning hearing board to approve your variance,
With two variances.
your two variances from section 401 to permit your expansion, and from section 800, Correct.
And just for
Is that
official
correct?
record purposes, it's 1008E, I
Oh,
think.
okay, thank you, 1008.
Yeah, sorry about
actually
that.
I was thinking that doesn't sound correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the first one is actually 400, the application says 401, but that is being corrected, so it's actually.
So a variance from section 401 and a variance.
400.
400.
And 1080.
And-
Sorry.
And 10.
Right, what says 1800, you're saying it was 1080?
Oh, maybe it was 1800, I'm sorry. No, I have to look at it.
1800.
Both variances
They're
on your
supposed to know.
application.
No, it's 1800. I'm
Yes.
sorry, that's right. You're right. That part was right. The other one
It was
was-
just a question on the application. The plans show it right then.
Okay.
Yes, the plans are right.
Thank you, and we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back.
Good luck.
This is for the stay in your practice. Thanks, guys. Good luck. Appreciate it. Thanks, Sean.
Of course, see you soon.
All right, thank you.
You want to check and see if you got an email, or,
I can, yeah.
because otherwise, time marches on.
Yeah, I'll see if
Just trying to get a post.
somebody email.
He's going to check email and see if he had a notification, but nobody else appears to be here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were expecting Preet to present. I don't know if that's the one you're here for. So, yeah, we were expecting them as well. So he's just going to check and see if perhaps he received an email during the intervening time of setting up the room.
That's rude.
A tad.
They're standing there for council.
They've been here before.
No, they know how to get here.
They're probably tracking my watch from 1980. Where's your next vacation?
Nowhere this year, man. I gotta pay Woodrow back for all the time I took off.
Good luck.
But I'll get him double next year.
How's your wife doing? Everything good down there?
Good.
Good.
Just met with her exit advisor
Oh, when's she retiring?
October 1st.
Wow. A lot of people this year.
She's a nurse at student health at University of Pennsylvania.
And did they go Epic already?
I could probably, all she does is complain about the software program. Point and click till my arm falls off, she says.
She needs,
She's a voice activator.
they have
Can
that.
they do that?
They have that. They have, I think it's Nuance now. Used to be Dragon, naturally speaking.
Yeah,
But-
I remember that term. Yeah.
Nothing. Preet, Pennsylvania Real Estate Investment Trust was supposed to have a zoning issue presented tonight. They are not here. As a no call, no show, we are adjourning the meeting. Thank you.